So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
Ifeatu Melifonwu is one of the best defensive players on the Detroit Lions roster, and after last season and the way he finished it, Ifeatu Melifonwu finished the year as one of the best defensive players in the NFL. However, despite that, despite his historic finish to the NFL season, despite the stats that he put up, the impact that he had on the defense, and how good he was, he continuously gets overlooked on this defense and continuously gets overlooked on the Detroit Lions roster. Everybody's infatuated with Aiden Hutchinson. Everybody loves Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader and Jack Campbell and Terrion Arnold and Kirby Joseph on the defensive side of the ball. But a lot of people don't know, or a lot of people just ignore the fact that Ifeatu Melifonwu, down the stretch of the last month or so of the season, was one of the best defensive players in the game and one of the best defensive players in all of football. The 6'3", 210-pound safety from the University of Syracuse was the 101st overall pick in the 2021 draft. Now, despite Ifeatu being a relatively high pick, despite him being one of the best cornerback prospects in that draft, the Detroit Lions had a vision with him. And after a couple of slow starts to his NFL career, playing just 17 games through his first two seasons, Ifeatu decided to make a full-time switch to the safety position. And by the end of 2023, it was very clear to see why. Now, at the cornerback position, Ifeatu was not bad as a Detroit Lions cornerback. As through his first 17 games, he had 29 tackles as a boundary cornerback, 1 tackle for loss, 5 passes defended, and 2 fumble recoveries in what was essentially Ifeatu's rookie year at cornerback. He did not come away with an interception, but had several really good reps and even 2 passes defended versus a prime Green Bay Packers Davante Adams, and he showed a lot of flashes for a player that wasn't quite able to be healthy and stay on the field. However, in 2023, Ifeatu had his first full healthy season with the Detroit Lions, and despite not winning the starting safety job immediately, he did play really well when he was given the opportunity. And at the end of the year, Ifeatu earned a starting spot on the defense and did not look back. In his last 5 games, or I guess in 2023, Ifeatu Melifonwu played in 17 games for the Detroit Lions in the regular season, starting 6 of those games, as well as the 3 playoff games that the Detroit Lions took part in. In those 6 starts, Ifeatu Melifonwu totaled 3 sacks, 19 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits, 2 interceptions, and 7 passes defended. That is just in the last 5 games of the NFL season. And as we talked about this a few months ago when the season was going on, this puts Ifeatu Melifonwu on pace for elite sack numbers, elite tackle for loss numbers, elite interception numbers, elite pass defended numbers. This puts him as a potential defensive player of the year candidate if he could replicate that over the entire length of the season. And even though he didn't have an interception in the playoffs, even his 3 playoff games totaled for 16 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. And for whatever reason, PFR doesn't track playoff passes defended or interception numbers. Obviously, Ifeatu did not have an interception in the playoffs, but I'm sure he had a pass defended or 2, although those numbers were not tracked and I could not find those numbers. But purely from a box safety standpoint, 16 tackles in 3 games for 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 3 quarterback hits is really, really impressive. And his impact was very much felt on the defensive side of the ball as a player that just was all over the place. So in essentially his final 7 games of the season, 3 of which were in the playoffs, he had 5 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for losses, a ton of tackles, a ton of PBUs, and was arguably the best safety in the NFL in that 2-month time span. Now, Ifeatu Melifonwu, in my opinion, is one of the best blitzing safeties in the NFL. He gets home. He always gets arms on the quarterback. When he comes off the edge, it is really hard to stop him because typically he is bigger than a lot of running backs and his reach is a lot farther than most running backs are able to withstand. Right? Even if the running back stops Ifeatu a yard away from where the quarterback is, Ifeatu's arms are so long that typically he can still reach the quarterback, even being a couple feet away, even not being right on top of the QB. He's able to affect the quarterback because his arms are longer than the running back's arms, meaning he can reach past where the running back is blocking him. Those long arms obviously help him with passes defended. They obviously help him with interceptions. They obviously help him with the range that he has as a safety. And even though Ifeatu was a great cornerback for the Detroit Lions, even though when he was playing as a boundary cornerback, he was really good, I do think the best spot for him was the safety position. Even though it took him about a year and a half to fully transition to the starting strong safety role from cornerback, we're seeing that pay off. We're seeing that transition make him into one of the best players in the NFL at his position. And I wouldn't be surprised if now going into his 4th NFL year, a year where Ifeatu is likely to be the starting safety across from Kirby Joseph, I would not be surprised if obviously Ifeatu stays healthy, if we see a defensive player of the year type of season from Ifeatu Melifonwu, a year where we see him come away with 5 interceptions and 8 sacks and 50 to 60 tackles and a lot of tackles for loss and a lot of passes defended, because that's where Ifeatu was on pace for. That's where he was on track to be by the end of the 2023 season. And if you projected his last 5 games over an entire season, you're talking about defensive player of the year numbers. You're talking about 10 sacks from a safety. You're talking about 12, 15 tackles for loss, 4 to 5 interceptions, right? You're talking about one of the most impactful players in the NFL. And yet this is a player that doesn't get talked about, a player that had multiple 4th down stops last year, a player that had a game-winning interception to seal the Detroit Lions' first NFC Championship game since 1991. A player that had takeaways versus Dallas, takeaways versus Chicago, takeaways versus Minnesota, was phenomenal as a pass rusher versus Denver and forced a fumble there for a turnover, right? This is a guy that has turnovers, has passes defended, has sacks, always seems to be impactful and around the football. But for whatever reason, never, ever gets talked about. Never gets talked about by the media. Never gets talked about by the Lions fans, right? It's always Aiden Hutchinson. It's always James Houston. It's always Aleem McNeil. It's always DJ Reader. It's always Kirby Joseph. Most recently, it's always Terrion Arnold who gets the spotlight. And yet the best, the most productive player of the bunch is Ifeatu Melifonwu. And if he can keep up what he did in 2023 and bring that into 2024, the Detroit Lions very well may have an elite secondary going forward. And they very well may have an elite safety duo in between Kirby Joseph and Ifeatu Melifonwu. So with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to bring a little bit of light to how good Ifeatu was to end the year, how good he is as a football player, and how well he transitioned from cornerback to safety, and exactly what he is bringing to the Detroit Lions come the 2024 season. So with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. Of course, let me know down in the comments below, how do you feel about number 6 being the starting safety for next season? How confident are you in his ability to repeat what he did in 2023? What are your stat projections for Ifeatu Melifonwu in the 2024 season? I'd be very curious to you guys have to say what your expectations are for the young safety and whether or not you believe he deserves a second contract, as this will be the last year of him playing under his rookie deal. Very curious to hear about all of that from you guys. But with all of that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go